Well, my hope tonight is that we can get through as much of the text as possible. I'm going to call it section by section, like town meeting budget. And if anybody's got something they want to hold, shout it out. And then we'll go back on the holds, and then we'll move on to the next section.
Okay.
Okay.
So what my hope would be to get a third draft together sometime in, sometime between I get it to you sometime between the 15th and the 20th of September, and then we'd meet sometime between the 20th and the next week. And then we have to come up with a strategy for having a stakeholders meeting or an all boards meeting or whatever you think would be the most appropriate thing to do.
Right.
We got to go public at some point.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. When do you think your town meeting will be in 2025?
Usually they're in the spring town meetings in May.
Okay. My wife retired 3 weeks ago, and that's why we went on this trip and trying to figure out what we can do in the spring. I've got 4 town meetings I have to go to, I know for sure. So.
Yeah, I'm just focused on the October town meeting. We've got a lot riding there too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Our MBTA communities, actually. That's going in the fall. So that's running concurrent with this, but it's got to be it's a shorter time frame. But, yours is a much more complicated procedurally to do. Hopefully won't be anywhere as controversial. Hopefully we won't have a controversial MBTA communities proposal.
I just got invited to submit an amicus brief for Mass Housing Partnership. And I totally agree with MBTA and the program, but I learned yesterday that one of my towns is being counseled by its regional planning agency to take the evasive route.
Really?
Evasive meaning fighting it?
No, they're not fighting it. They're basically circumventing it by doing what
trying to meet the requirements but not make it feasible.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not something that they're dreaming up on their own. This is one of the 13 regional planning agencies in the Commonwealth telling them to do this.
Well, our regional planning agency is helping us with this, so we're in fact have a draft. The planning board this same group is meeting on the MBTA communities, and next Tuesday at planning board we'll be going over the first draft, and then whether we do it next week or in 2 weeks, the planning board will vote to transmit the language to the town warrant. The language and the zoning and the parcels.
Yeah, keep me in the loop so that I have it when it's adopted, if it's adopted, and I can just fold it right in.
Right. Yeah, we have to we're keeping that in mind, that what we put out, what gets adopted in the fall, will be reorganized in the spring.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
Given any latecomers time to join here, so I guess I'll call the planning board to order here.
You got a quorum?
Yep.
Okay. Can we share screen and I'll put it up?
Yes.
Everybody on board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, it's voluminous when I compare it to your old one, but I think there's just a lot of strikeouts and such in here that disappear. I have not prepared a clean draft yet, but that'll be the next thing I do. So section 1, without further ado, shouldn't be a lot of problems here. This overcrowding and undue concentration of population has caused some problems in some towns with standing fights.
Mm.
People claim that density and overcrowding is an injury protected under the zoning act. If this is in your upfront purpose clause, they use that to buttress their argument that you're too dense or your project is too dense or that it's going to overcrowd. My interpretation of state case law is that you only get to argue this if it's a zoning violation that creates the density or overcrowding. Otherwise, town meeting has made a choice, right? Brookline can't be sued for overcrowding and undue concentration if they decide to have a house lot 5,000 square feet. That's what the voters chose. But if you're violating zoning somehow in order to
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
yeah, to increase, right? So I don't know if you want to leave that. It is, in my line of work, having done 24 standing fights in the last 2.5 years, it's annoying. It's very annoying. And remember that the town is always getting hauled into these things. It may not be a lot of money because you usually let the successful permittee carry the load, but it's still some money, even if your town council's just showing up on an occasional basis and rooting for the board.
Right.
So I'll leave it up to you, but otherwise, this is pretty much what you have today.
Mhm.
I've amended a couple of things here and there. This initiation of amendment stuff is what you have today. And that's about it. Anybody want to hold anything?
Nope.
Okay. Districts. We didn't create any new ones. We didn't delete any old ones as far as I can remember.
Mhm.
I've just added a new section that explains that there's certain overlay districts.
Yeah.
The marijuana is new, right?
New,
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have the latest version of that?
I think I gave it to you.
Okay, I just don't remember.
yeah. Although
There's only been one overlay district, so if you have an overlay district, you have the overlay district.
For cannabis.
Correct.
And it's not been, I don't believe, Laura, has it been amended?
It has not been altered.
the
no.
district itself has not been. The bylaws have been, but the district has not.
Oh, but the bylaws have been, okay, but they should be reflected on the online version.
Yeah, they should, but they're not.
They still haven't made that change?
No, they did, because the tables are okay. There's some language that we approved at the 2020 fall town meeting that did not make it into the E-code version, and actually Mark picked out one area where the sentence just ends for some reason. So I found 3 or 4. I actually went line by line, because as soon as I found that there was one issue, I figured there had to be others. And I think I found 3 places where the E-code bylaw is not the language of the bylaw that we approved at town meeting, nor is it the update that we did in 2021.
So do you have those easily emailable to me, Laura?
Yep. No
Great.
problem.
And to me, Laura, so that way I can get it to Lucia, so Lucia can, who's our town clerk, can get it to E-code to fix it?
Yep. No
Okay.
problem.
I would say something to save for presentation. We have changed no zoning districts. They are the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
We emphasize that this is a recodification. We are not trying to change things under people's noses.
Right.
Well, not too many things.
You understand my point.
Oh, no, yeah,
Yeah.
I know somebody will stand up if you persist in that too strongly.
Oh, I think I can walk the line, but yeah.
You promised us you wouldn't change anything. Which isn't really true.
It's nice if we can rely on the, by advice of counsel, this is no longer acceptable. The Attorney General doesn't allow this anymore.
Yeah,
If we get legal standing, there's not much they can say about it.
yeah, I agree. So this wetland protection overlay district is, I don't know. You tell me. It's pretty rare for me to see this in a town today.
Yeah.
It's called an overlay district, but there is no map. It is not on the zoning map.
Yeah, I raised that question.
Right.
So it's really hard to call it an overlay.
And
It
what's
is
the purpose?
It's a district.
Right, it's a district, but we protect all wetlands the same. They go through the same process, whether they're in this district or not. I just think, I don't know, I would rather get it out of there, but I know that's my opinion. It just seems onerous because if the Conservation Commission determines it's in their jurisdiction, you're going to have to follow. Now we don't have a wetlands bylaw in the town, but so they have to follow the Wetland Preservation Act. But I would just rather keep things consistent.
Well, what are the odds that they're going to adopt at a town meeting a general bylaw for wetlands?
It has not been good in the past. So, and I don't think our conservation director is interested at this point, but I don't want to speak for him.
Yeah.
He can do that, although he's on his way to Portugal, so he's not doing that right now. So,
all right. Well, we've had this conversation 3 or 4 times. I'm just going to let sleeping dogs lie.
yeah.
I think there is a provision. I think it's in Chapter 48, Section 4, that says all districts shall be shown on a map. Can somebody Google that? Just Google Mass General Laws and then put in 40A4. And I think that's what it says.
Any zoning ordinance or bylaw which divides cities or towns into districts shall be uniform within the district for each class or kind of structures or uses permitted. Districts shall be shown on a zoning map in a manner sufficient for identification.
Yeah.
Such map shall be part of our zoning ordinances or bylaws. Assessors of property plans may be used as the basis for zoning maps if more than 4 sheets or plates are used in the zoning map and index map. So yeah.
Yeah. So you may run into a tick at the Attorney General's office if they're looking for the map of this, but they rarely do. Sometimes, many times, districts, even overlay districts, are town-wide, and there's never a map. It's just basically stated in the bylaw that the district is an overlay district, which is town-wide in nature. But I suppose we might be able to get away with that with the wetland protection overlay district, just to make sure we salvage it. This isn't the place to do it. It would be in the back.
Yeah.
Let me make a note.
Was this the one that had certain locations further in the bylaw?
Yeah, it's delineated. There's about 15 or 20 that use legal descriptions in the bylaw, but we never mapped them.
I know our current conservation director had mapped them, but we haven't presented them as official.
But it would also apply to anything unmapped, not yet having any reason to be mapped, wouldn't it?
Well,
The MBTA district fall in that category?
Yeah, MBTA districts should be mapped.
We will be
just had this
mapping it.
fight down the road in Lakeville. I was representing Rhino Capital, and one of the things they had was they got a special permit under the was called the something development. There was some development bylaw, and it was not mapped. And I argued all the way up to the appeals court that it was townwide in nature, and the appeals court actually ruled that the text was adopted at the 2012 town meeting, but because there was no map, they intended to come back. And I was like, what are you smoking? That's never happened in 39 years of my experience. And if they put it into expedited permitting, it suggested that they were expediting this, not delaying it. And the appeals court ruled against me. So I'm aware that there's some opinion, at least at the appeals court, that if you don't map it, it ain't a district. So just giving you a warning.
Yeah, I think we need to determine what do we want to do with that overlay district and coordinate with Conservation Commission on this. Or at least me and the conservation director. But yeah, I'd like to, I need to talk to him and see where he's at with it. And then if we want changes or beef it up by keeping it and then mapping it, then we, work with the planning board and conservation commission on that.
Well, I may be tempted to say in section 9.1, which I think is the district, it might be 9.3. Oh yeah, here's all the land that you've already classified. I mean, you could say right here in 936, the wetland protection district shall be considered an overlay over the town of Norton, with specific locations being identified as follows. That may solve the problem. Now everybody knows that you have to look for wetlands. Is this all that land stuff? Everything? Or is it everything you've explored so far?
I don't know.
Too.
I don't know when this was last updated, if it's ever been updated.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is it's never been updated. And again, this is part of the problem with this district. Wetlands change boundaries.
Right. Yeah.
And I just don't know why this is here when we have wetland permitting. But, anyway,
Let's move on, and Paul, you can discuss with John and decide how you want to do it.
Yeah.
I think we all understand the pieces
Yeah.
at play.
Okay, I gotta go back up to I think that was the end of section 2. Oops. All right, so yeah. I think we discussed last time adding the carryover lots split by district boundaries. And I think the thing I chose to show you was really kind of convoluted. So in the first draft, I'm going to put a relatively simple provision that says, if you take the less restrictive district 30 feet into the more restrictive district, you can do that by special permit.
That aligns with my notes.
I'm just making notes here. Okay. Any holds on section 2? Hearing none. So this is really all about the use table. Otherwise, I've preserved your 10,000 foot and over special permit requirement and referenced it in the use table. Accessory uses, unlike principal uses, don't have to all be listed in order to be eligible. because the court has said there's too many and it's too creative an adventure to think of them all. So other accessory uses besides those in the table are allowed provided they meet the definition of accessory use, which is set forth there in abbreviated part.
No issues for me.
Okay. And I decided I think we've collectively decided not to change, this would usually include things like home occupations at this point, but I think you've got those nicely identified in the use table, so I'm not gonna disrupt that. Or
Feel free to
suggest.
steal from us for somebody else.
Well, the only thing I would suggest, just to discuss it a second, is that
We can get there when we get to 5. It's okay.
no, it would come in 3. So home occupations would say there's by right and by special permit, two separate subsections. By right is anything that doesn't have a non-resident employee, a customer, a client, or a pupil. And anything that would trip that threshold, non-resident employees, customers, clients, or pupils would require a special permit.
I don't think I want to have a special permit for a piano teacher.
Well, we can take out the pupils, but customers or clients. I wouldn't want to have a special permit for a lawyer, waiting for a client to come pick up a will once every month. I don't think that should trigger it either. There has to be some common sense. But if you have people coming regularly, whatever that means, there's going to be impacts on the neighborhood.
And in terms of what's the principal use of the structure?
Well, assuming that it's customarily incidental and subordinate, then the principal use of the structure would be the residential use.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to see it? I could show it to you. I won't put it in. I'll just send you the file.
I think our uses already cover employees by special permit pretty well already.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I looked at it, I didn't think I wasn't hearing that this was something that was causing
No,
problems on the street.
no.
Okay.
No issue I've ever heard of.
Okay.
Other than me having trouble getting into, get a cake from Sweet Step before she got a new shop. Because there were 3 people in the driveway.
Kate's Confections has that problem.
That's why I just used the box in her driveway.
And there
Yeah.
are
Yeah, but-
occupations?
You gotta be able to get into the driveway.
I guess I picked good times.
You must.
Okay, so you've got this other stuff here on wetlands and waterways. So I guess this just subtracts out the resource area, right?
Yes.
And that doesn't subtract out the buffer.
No, it's primarily, it's the wetland waterways.
Okay. And then you have one of these wonderful lot shape factor bylaws. I didn't change.
Yeah, I noticed you gave us honkers.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's just as, if not more, confusing.
Yeah, that's why I live on a rectangle.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nobody's had an issue with it so far, so
Okay, all right, no, good. Do you prefer the MGL to be MGL or M period G period L period?
that's correct.
If the courts don't use the M, they put G period L period. But lay people don't seem to get that for some reason. I don't care one way or the other. I just want to be consistent.
Like town council just, with the Amigo special permit, she used GL.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we all do. Because you're submitting your brief to a court, and that's what they do, so. It's not Blue Book, but that's what the courts do.
I keep the M, I'm agnostic with regards to the periods after each letter.
Okay. Nobody cares?
I would be hard pressed to care less.
Well, I'm just gonna make them consistent then with the MGL, and periods are complicating things, so I'll just undo them. Well, this is what you have, obviously. The shape factor makes me dizzy. Multiple buildings, all what you have. Let's clean that up.
Four, six, three,
Yeah,
where it says section 7.1, I think it's now 8.2, but if you just want to put 3 asterisks, you have to go back.
oops, didn't want to do that.
Undo.
Yeah, I gotta find undo.
Keep
That
going
will-
up.
Yeah, but it's, this meeting is being recorded, it's blocking, there it is.
Oh,
There we go. Now you said 4.3?
yeah, cluster lot where it says section 7.1, that's no longer a good reference, so just asterisk it until we're final.
That might be the new reference. That's.
8.2 is then where it stands.
Oh, we would.
I'll let Reed put
Right.
where it stands with, at the end, I don't know.
Okay, I'll put 8.2 now. Again, I'll let you have. I never end up really changing much of the dimensional stuff. All right, here's my baby. Non-conforming uses and structures. So this is brand new all throughout. I think. you know,
Did we get Nick's weigh in on this ever?
I haven't seen comments from him, and we'd really like to get comments from Tom, since this is right in the wheelhouse of the ZBA.
Yeah. So I typically do a training session after we go through town meeting, and this is about a half of it. So maybe I should just call Tom.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll send him an email.
And I would include Nick Iafredi in there too, building commissioner.
Okay. I'll copy you, Paul, and I'll send them an email and say, here's your chance.
Great.
It's all brand new. Just give me a buzz. If we want to set up a call, we can do that. And we'll go with what they've got. This probably is in, I want to say 65 or 75 towns at this point. Nobody calls me. It's not like they're yelling at me. So I'm pretty confident in it. You just have to get. There are a lot of intricacies in there that only apply in certain circumstances, and you just have to know when that's the case. Like this 100% doubling of the GFA would negate the carve-outs that are in 1, 2, and 3. So you have to get everything right. You have to be under 100% in 1, 2, or 3. And then that wouldn't apply to reconstruction after catastrophe or demo. But once you get the hang of it, it's a pretty simple tool to use. Any particular questions on 5? We get here into a lot of things that what did I want that to say? Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So I had this discussion yesterday with one of my other towns. You know, the whole notion of putting a arbitrary number on increases or decreases. My point of view is that if it works, it works. And you may be eliminating some situations in which it could be better.
Yeah, I agree.
And if it's not good enough, don't do it. Especially when you're putting it on a special permit.
Yeah, I think that I agree, Mark.
Okay. So that would mean that this is probably a deletion. Because it's not going to be a limitation on parking. And it probably would, I can't remember if I put a general parking. So what I usually do is I put something like that, special permits for reduced requirements. I like to make that generic. What I prefer to say is just any parking or loading regulation can be varied by special permit.
Yeah.
Provided that the applicant for the special permit proves, here they are. If it can be demonstrated that a modification shall not result in substantial detriment. And that's anything, that's, it's loading, it's parking, it's the size of the parking space, it's the number of parking spaces. It could be whether or not the particular use is paved or unpaved.
I like the flexibility with this provision because many times we've had a special permit or site plan in-house with the planning board and they have to go to the ZBA because we don't have a specific authority to grant a waiver.
Right.
And
it's even more cumbersome when you have to make a case to the ZBA that you need this relief because of soil condition, shape, or topography. It ought to be whether it's good or bad. Jump ball.
and get the one board that's actually doing the review to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
I mean, just a consistency, right? Because if you know, there are some boards out, ZBAs out there that are real strict and others that are not, but I think it just makes sense to, if the planning board is the reviewing, give them as much authority to be able to make the changes as much as possible.
Right, and it's, there's an old land court case from Judge Koshan's days, oh boy, that goes back 30 years. He ruled that you can't modify or vary requirements in simple site plan review. In other words, you have to have a special permit to do that, but it's certainly permissible using a special permit as a tool. So that's why this is captioned special permits for modifications. And if you were going to do this in the use only required site plan approval, you'd have to open up a special permit public hearing in the site plan approval process. So just pointing that out. Signs, I rarely change. I think I might have caught a political sign thing here.
Oh, hang on, can we go back to 614?
Yeah.
I think we're missing something in that off-street parking requirement. I think there's a fourth block that we've cut off.
I think I had changed this around a little. You think there's a number 4 here?
There's a row in the table that's empty.
Yeah, and it should be what used to be 6.142C. So 6.14 in my draft is residential parking requirement, and then there's a table of residential off-street parking requirements within it.
Yeah,
And I think it is missing the fourth category, which is all others.
do you have a page in the old bylaw you can send me to quickly? Oh, I typed the parking and loading page.
Yeah, hang on, because it's not paginated, unfortunately, but let me pull it up. Your draft. It was on. I have no pages. There's no
Hmm.
page numbers.
In the old one or the new one?
And the one that I'm working off of, which is the one that you'd given us back a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Let me go to view read mode and see if I can get to a page that way. Hang on. 614. Was originally pages 22 and 23.
In the old bylaw.
In the version that you sent us last.
Oh, I get it. Okay. All right, so what do you think it should say?
So right now there's a table with a heading and then 4 rows. The first 3 rows have text, the fourth doesn't. And the fourth one should be the catch-all for all others, where it states not less than 1.75 spaces per 1 bedroom, not less than 2 for a 2-bedroom, not less than 2.5 for a 3, etc., etc.
Okay.
So we are missing what used to be 2C in the. Let me check the current. Where was parking in the old one?
7.4, 175-74.
7.4. We are missing. So that table was pulled from. Why can't I find it now? Am I losing my mind?
No, I think I made a table out of something that wasn't a table before.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I'm trying to find it.
Look, we should probably, before we move on, we should talk about that too. So find what you're telling me and then we'll go back. This is the table for residential.
Residential parking requirement.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, we are missing.
That? Where the cursor is?
I'm not looking at the cursor. I'm looking at the E code.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me jump back over to the Zoom. Yes. So, yes, where your cursor is blinking, there's a. So in the E code bylaw, it is 7.4B3. It looks like.
All other multifamily residential dwellings?
Yeah. For all other multi-dwelling residential buildings not less than 1.75.
I see it.
That's the one we're missing.
Before we forget that, let me just keep making a note to myself so I don't get screwed up here. B3. Okay, so the stuff above that, government subsidized housing, number 1, government subsidized housing for regular households. The first one was for low-income elderly. Do we really need that anymore? First of all, there isn't any government subsidized housing. You must have adopted this in the Reagan administration. Cause he's the one who ended it. And it would be, I can't imagine that this would be adopted for government subsidized housing for low income elderly. That's HUD 202. That's a program that still exists. If you have a school that you've converted to your aunt's apartment, that's something that would be low income elderly. And this government subsidized housing for families with low and moderate income, we don't have that anymore. There's very little of it. And so I think it would be 40B. And 40B would set its own parking. You could argue with them about it and deny the waiver, but this is very Smithsonian. On the other, I mean, if you want to keep it in there, you're never gonna apply it. I can't imagine that you would. So that's,
I mean, if it's obsolete, I don't see a need to keep it.
yeah, it's these two things.
But so does the government subsidized housing for low income elderly, is that under the housing authority's purview?
No, government subsidized means federal or state. And
Okay.
there is still a program out there called HUD 202. And it's very commonly used to convert municipal buildings like schools into apartments in which, the housing authority generally administers these things. And it's run by or administered by the housing authority. But this other one, government subsidized housing for households with low or moderate income, I don't know of a single program out there that you could apply to for the subsidy. Being if the closest thing I can think of is LIP in Massachusetts is a pseudo subsidy in which the government signature constitutes a subsidy so that you qualify under 40B. But it's not a real subsidy, it's an in-kind subsidy. I think you can get rid of these two things. I think they're just really antiquated.
I have no problem simplifying any parking requirements.
When you have a 40B come like a multifamily rental, don't you really end up negotiating the parking at somewhere between 1.4 and 1.75 spaces, or?
I don't recall. We had a couple a few years ago, but I don't remember what we did, how we handled that parking.
Yeah, and so even if you put in the bylaw, multifamily housing for low and moderate income households will have between 1.25 or at least 1.25 and not more than 1.75. If I couldn't do that, I'd ask you for a waiver, and if you didn't give it to me, I'd take it to the Housing Appeals Committee and prove that it's uneconomic. That's the game today.
Yeah, I would just rather keep it simple.
All right,
And again,
Let's move on.
yeah,
well, keeping it simple means that yellow stuff's coming out. Is that
I'm fine with it.
okay?
Yeah.
And then I will add back in the thing that should be in the empty spaces there. All right, so then this is a lot of grouping here that normally isn't grouped. So,
Terrible. It's a terrible standard that we have.
Yeah,
Right. We have funeral homes and restaurants or some grocery stores in the same category. So
I did notice that. Yeah,
yeah, it's
you have nurseries and colleges in the same.
right. This is a complete reworking, and we need to tie this into Institute for Transportation Engineering, which pretty regularly updates the parking methodology. So yeah.
Would you like to see somebody else's that's more modern?
I would. I definitely would.
I'd be happy to rework the whole section. That's fine.
All right, I'll send you Andover's and, a couple of other places that have had recent experience with doing what you just described, having a transportation specialist look at it. So I like it, where it doesn't matter so much if you have these regulations, because if you've got the ability to ask for a special permit to get out of it, things can be forgiven. So the rest of it is pretty much what you have. And that's with the addition of my, I put common driveways in here because I thought it had a nice home here. And then there's my special permits for modifications. Signs, I think I have the same thing at the end. Yeah, it sort of glitched the format here. My office manager, who quit about a year and a half ago, was just entirely good at rearranging this. I think I'm going to reach out to her and hire her on the side to do the final draft cleanup.
Okay. Yeah, I've got small housekeeping
there's
stuff
a lot
along the
of-
way.
Yeah, and when I move, add sections, the format bounces around. So there's the special permit for modifications. You've got a lighting bylaw. There's going to be a special permit here for modifications, landscaping, slim shell. Otherwise, it's what you have. And there's the thing I showed you back a few meetings ago. I told you I was going to leave it in. There it is. Maybe I'd like to at least float it to the stakeholder meeting and see what people think. Any objections?
No, I like having the standards in one place instead of 5 or 6 others, 5 or 6 separate sections.
Okay.
No objections. I would just say that when we get to the stakeholder session, that I think you did it, the way you did it this evening is fine. Just emphasize, this is a new thing. This is
Yeah.
why we want it.
Are we past page 19? I don't think I added page numbers. I'll put a note to myself.
Page 39.
Yeah, well, see, nobody reads up to page 39. So. Okay.
That's the problem.
I tried to merge some of the stuff that you already had. This 13 and 14, for example, is what you have already. The way you see sentences that are black, it's not an accident, it's what you have already. This was just, the traffic section was just reviewed by Medford's in-house transportation engineer, so I feel pretty confident that that's up to speed. This is what you have already under aesthetics. Better than most. All right, any holds in section 6? Onward. So 7 is special rather than general. These things are particular. Earth materials didn't change anything other than to move the definitions to the back. Adult uses now is constitutional. And I get to explain it to town meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, this was your only real regulation, the thing in black here, and this, that was it. So everything else is added, but it's all common sense conditions. And some are actually required by the statute. Like nobody.
Do we need to still give you that 500 or that 1,000-foot rule, the buffer, not the buffer, but can't be within 1,000 feet of a school or? We were supposed to run
measure.
that.
No, I need, what you need to.
You want us
give me-
to provide, yes.
Yeah, and this.
Sorry, I needed to do that.
Well, I'm looking for you to verify that in my sidebar, that there's a reasonable opportunity for the speech with those 1,000-foot, 500-foot spacing requirements.
Right.
So we probably are gonna end up having to change that. And then the minimum distance shall be measured in a straight line. I'm gonna take the letter I got from the Attorney General's office on marijuana measurement, which was amended in the CMRs. And I'm gonna use what the amendment says. I know this isn't marijuana, but let's just keep the measuring calculations the same.
Yeah, I think when we talked about it last time, we agreed that we expect that whatever rules we have in there are not feasible. So
Yeah.
we would be needing to provide you an alternate feasible thing, and you had suggested if you're at 1%, nobody's gonna look at that as an easy chance to sue.
Well, you're already above Kingsborough, and that's the model for small towns, so. But I need to replace that the sentence there that's not yellow.
Yeah.
Well, we know that that is a hole that needs to be filled by
Yeah.
us.
Okay, that's good. Somebody with a protractor.
I probably got one upstairs.
All right, so that's the rest of the adult. What else have we got here? Wireless, I didn't change anything.
We didn't change anything in wireless?
I'm looking,
Okay.
I don't see, there might be a strikeout here or there, but I don't think I changed. I might have added something.
Can we,
It's not a district, it's a thing, so,
can you go to the setback section?
of the wireless,
Yes. Oh, you skimmed past it. There we go.
there it is.
I see. Yes. Can you flag that as and I'll put this on, I would like to do a simple revision of the language.
Okay,
The language in the bylaw is tortured and could be interpreted to read that you need your setback from any piece of the constructed structure, including like an accessory shed,
yeah,
needs to be set back by the height of the tallest structure, which in a wireless communication facility could be very tall. So you could be needing to give the shed enough of a setback to fall 30 feet or 100 feet horizontally, which it would never do.
yeah. I don't think they fall generally anyway.
Well, it's certainly not going to fall 100 feet sideways.
Right,
A shed.
right.
Yeah, the issue is
We had one
how
last
structure
year.
and property is defined, how structure is defined.
Yeah. So we had one last year and we basically just gave them a waiver to it.
So I'm going to await a rewrite. Is that right?
Yes. A simple rewrite that does not change the purpose.
Okay. standing by.
And while I'm thinking of it, is this, Paul, where we have the scale of the map that we give people a waiver for, like every other application?
Well, that's in the site planning.
So it's in site
Section.
plan, it's not in these, okay, so it's in later.
It could be. It's been a long time since I've looked,
Okay.
worked on with the wireless, but
Not
yeah,
the
the
wireless, no, the map scale, yeah.
the map, yeah, I don't know if there's a map scale provision there separately, but yeah,
Not for
so-
wireless, for everything.
yeah.
All right, I'm on solar and I don't know what to tell you. So,
Leave it alone and say we didn't change anything.
okay, there you go.
Is that,
Yeah. That's just a reiteration of law already, Simon. That's not a real strikeout. Let me just be sure.
is there a way to note that?
When I go to explain it to people, I'll just say this is already covered by statute and we're not interested in repeating much of the statute.
We have to do it anyway. We do it for any special permit.
Right.
Yes, I know. But I could see a certain section of town going, wait, you're removing a noticing requirement for solar? Yeah, evil people.
I don't have a problem with leaving it in if that's the risk. I mean, I've taken it out 99.9
Am I too-
places.
Am I too paranoid though, Laura?
Nope.
Never hard,
I'm not too paranoid, for once,
You are not.
okay.
No,
hard not to be too paranoid.
yeah, people are immediately suspicious as soon as you want to stop telling them things.
Yeah. Okay, so I took out the. All right, and then this is my warning in that we don't know what the hell's going on. I haven't had any bad luck with the AG's office in my last 5 bylaws, all of which I consider to be illegal. But I don't know what is legal, so,
It makes you a good lawyer.
well, you can argue both sides, that's the good news. Okay, all right, so special residential affordable housing. You know, I've taken this out because it's illegal.
Right.
Yes. I was gonna, yeah. In the public information session, I'm not sure if we wanted to just cover that there are some things in here we are taking out because we don't feel that they would pass legal muster. And tell people, we don't want to necessarily scream those in big neon signs right
Yeah,
now.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually prepare.
Since we just had somebody who complied with this one and didn't complain. So,
Yeah, I usually prepare a 2-page, 2-sided handout that just says major change, minor change, and then it's like 3 columns. And in the 3rd column where I'm explaining it, I'll say, inconsistent with case law or something like that.
Well, under 1, this was where we talk about an existence as of October 8th. We had an appeal. Well, not an appeal, but the attorney was saying, like, if you look right above it where we say October of 2003 or anytime thereafter, but we don't say it under multi-unit dwellings, would this be the opportunity to add that or anytime thereafter?
well, it's being struck, so,
No, but I mean,
Number 1 isn't.
yeah. I mean, our
You
town council,
want to add this or anytime thereafter here.
we want to eliminate any reference to the date,
Okay,
or
We want to remove any
Okay,
argument,
parcel.
whether it means time
Yeah.
before that date or time
Right.
after that date.
yeah.
right.
And
Well, that's pretty.
the attorney argued that the plain language meant that it only applied to things that existed then. So this is new, so it doesn't have to apply to it.
All right, so that's what you want to do.
or as of, or say October 8th and any time thereafter.
Well, if I've got a parcel of land that was, so it's in existence as of October 8th. Well, what about,
I mean, I think we may be
it
fine.
doesn't, if you just strike it, it's the same thing, isn't it, as saying or thereafter? Isn't that all parcels? It was either in existence by October 8th or thereafter? That's 50-50, right? Is that when you adopted this bylaw?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably an attempt to capture the effective date, but I don't think you need the date.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a poorly executed attempt.
So now what it boils down to is that you're only going to get 10% of the units in a multiple unit development.
Right.
Okay. There is the alternative for subdivision units would be Chapter 48, Section 9. Any planning board by special permit may award an increase in density or intensity of use
Mm-hmm.
where the applicant is providing affordable housing and other things, other amenities, as the statute says. So you don't have that. I don't think that's in your cluster.
We allow a density bonus, but I think
Okay.
that's different.
Yeah, well, I think the statute goes on to say that any density bonus has to be accompanied by a formula that can, it can't be open-ended. So the rest of it, I think, is legal. Here's your cluster. That's a big minimum dimensional requirement.
Huge.
I mean, I would want to start at 5.
And
I am fine with bumping that down.
I don't even understand why we would delineate it for duplexes and multifamily. We do this throughout our whole bylaw, which this is consistent, but we always, anytime we intensify the use, we increase the minimum lot size, which I think is ridiculous. Why does a duplex need 5 more acres? Or why would that trigger 5 additional acres if you're doing duplex development?
Because it was designed to discourage any from single family housing.
Exactly. But I don't know if we're scoped to really go through that, but I would certainly be in favor of dropping the minimum and making it a minimum for any residential use.
Do you have residential cluster developments that contain 2 and 3 unit buildings?
We actually have a couple that have been discussed with us recently. Hasn't come to the planning board yet.
Do you all know where Cannon Forge is in Foxborough?
No.
So if you're in the center rotary and you peel off at the Remax building, and I think that's Mechanic Street, and you go all the way, maybe 2 miles, 2.5 miles on the left-hand side, there's a huge development called Cannon Forge. It was developed, I lived in Mansfield in the early 90s and it was already there. And you can probably Google it and get some clear pictures of it. It's 300 units and it goes up a hill. It's got a common building with a swimming pool, and I think it might have tennis courts. But it's a mix of singles, duplexes, and tries. And it's great. I mean, I think it's held its value, even though it's probably close to 30 years old now. But I really liked the developer aesthetics. For example, even though the duplexes and tries are bigger buildings, they place them sideways to the road so that you don't see the garage doors, and everything is, the vegetation is now really mature. Go take a drive and look at it. It's not that far from you.
No. Nope.
I like the I like the idea of all the developments having the same size requirement. It doesn't need to be bigger. I think 5 acres is acceptable. So
And I think it would not be a lot size. Yeah, it's off of Cohasset Street in Foxborough. Sounds like Cohasset, but it's Cohasset. Cannon has 2 ends. And there's Maloney Real Estate has a website with current listings and pictures. I used to cut through it every day when I was driving home from Boston. And I was very impressed with it. Yeah. All right, let me get out of this. So I'm going to flag that and just have a placeholder. And make a note that we want to look at Cannon Forge there. This, are you building Billerica or a cluster?
This is not a cluster. This is sprawl. It's nowhere near being a cluster.
No, well, that's why I said, are you building Billerica or a cluster? I mean, I think that there ought to be no lot size in this kind of a bylaw, because if I want to do a condo form of ownership, why would I need to draw lot lines? I just draw exclusive use areas.
Yeah, and you can create, like we've seen a development that was just approved, again, a modification. You have a septic system where all these units are tying into it, and it's clustered. That development's clustered. We don't call it that, but that's a better example of a cluster than what this will produce.
I'm going to send you my flexible development model. I'll just put it in a separate file and take a look at it. But I think 35% open space is high. I think 20 probably. This is carrot. You can't hit over the people over the head with this. This has got to be carrot.
Right. And we can't include wetlands, ponds as part of the original 35% minimum. Like, why? I mean, because is open space defined as recreational or, I don't understand why that.
It is here,
right? Right. We would
usually some percentage of the open space can be used for utilities, wastewater systems.
I mean, if you wanted to say active recreation in some percentage, that's one thing. But if it's just regular open space, I don't know why we wouldn't include. I mean, you do cluster development oftentimes to protect environmentally sensitive lands, why a lot of communities do it.
I actually think if we included wetlands and waterways as part of the open space, it would incentivize the developers to make sure those parts aren't in somebody's lot.
No, that's true. Yeah.
We actually want the open space to be tied to each individual lot and not set up by itself.
Right.
Because so they actually pay taxes on it. Instead of putting it in something that the HOA owns that nobody wants to, that nobody takes responsibility for.
Yeah, I get it.
It does make sense tax-wise, but it kind of defeats the purpose of providing an open space area as a community, as a way to make the cluster reasonable. That's the whole point of a cluster, is so everybody doesn't have an individual yard space so much that they have a community space.
Just repeating what Units asked me to do.
I understand, and maybe my job is to counter him a little bit.
Take a look at what I'm gonna send you. I think it's covering a lot of ground here that you're, going back and forth on.
Sure.
And then senior housing I did add. So this is pretty straightforward. There's no formula. I'm tempted to say shall meet the requirements in the district with where the blank is here.
Make it simpler that way.
Right, I didn't change much of your accessory apartments bylaw, but I don't think you were happy with it.
I saw something on LinkedIn. I think did the state pass a package of, I haven't read through it, but I saw that I guess they're now requiring accessory units to be by right, which we do already, fortunately.
Well, in Baker's housing legislation of a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, he had section on ADUs, and he defined them. So to use Baker's tool, you'd have to go with the definition. I think it's 900 square feet or 50% of the principal structure, whichever is.
Yep, that's right. It's exactly.
And
Ours is
so
750.
it's a 50% vote of town meeting to adopt the bylaw, provided that it's as of right in the principal structure. And then you can also have by special permit an ADU in a detached accessory structure like a garage or whatever else. And it's pretty straightforward from there. A lot of towns are not going in that direction because so many of them have requirements for family members only.
Oh, well, that's a limiting factor.
Yeah, right. And even that gets abused. There's stories of people dying and
Prove that Tim and I aren't cousins, right?
Right.
That's happened. Code enforcement has had all sorts of problems with things like that.
All right, so I'm not going to change your ADU. I'm on to section 9. Floodplain is what you gave me. And then water resource. I think I'm adding overlay to some of these districts
Okay.
just because they are overlays, right? So the map might not say WRPOD, but yeah, like the map is entitled WRPD, but who cares? I don't think that matters. The typical boundary dispute is resolved by special permit. This is built on a DEP model. They've come out with 3 evolving iterations of this. This is probably like number 2, maybe number 3, but it's all what they told you to do. All right, so 9.3 is this wonderful wetland protection bylaw, which I'm going to quickly skip. So I think I added by special permit. There is an old case called SCIT, SCIT versus Planning Board of Braintree. And in it, the appeals court held that all districts must allow at least one use as of right. It doesn't have to be a business use in a business district. It could be a residential use. But the use that is allowed as of right cannot be de minimis or otherwise protected by, like, the Dover Amendment. In other words, you couldn't stop it. So these resource districts come mighty close to being SCIT violations. And all I can do in this district is ag, outdoor rec, signs, nature study, existing homes, but, you know, I guess I could make a case that I can do some things like additions to alterations to existing buildings. And then this construction of a single family home on a frontage lot kind of rescues you, but
As long as we're rescued.
that's it. Okay, so onward and upward, this is all the direction. This is your marijuana district. Laura's gonna send me some stuff. Yeah. So this was such a big pile of stuff. I thought it was more like a special district regulation.
Yeah. But it's a base zoning.
Yeah. But I thought it would, both of these districts have a lot of detail that I just referenced in the district section.
Just one question with regards to the marijuana bylaw.
Yep.
You struck severability and conflict. Was that, you struck,
Well, you need to say severable in one place, and it's in section 1 already. In other words, all these bylaws that you've added over the course of the years, whether it's wireless or
Okay.
solar, you only need to say it once.
got it. Okay. That's a question. It's just as well because the language isn't what was approved in the town meeting, so.
Yeah.
That's one less thing I have to give you to correct.
Good.
We should still correct because this won't be live for 6 months, 9 months.
All right, so the only other thing I've got here is section 10. Not a lot of fancy stuff here.
And again, that's probably something to give to, we should get rid of Board of Selectmen and, you know, replace with Select Board, but Tom and Nick would really be the people, you know, certainly need to be finalizing.
And we're not granting use variances. This
Right, that's something we do at this, our bylaw specifically says we do not do.
Yeah. I'm having fun trying to talk towns into disregarding them. This is all just repetition of statute. And those are your new criteria, which have worked really well for me over the years. And then we get into site plan review. So you might, well, yeah, 2,500, that's a pretty good number to key it off. I've seen stuff under 2,500 that's That sucks, but 2,500 seems like a reasonable number.
I would like to make it higher, but I don't get to vote.
Higher meaning 10,000?
No, I wouldn't go that high, but not in Norton. But most homes built are over 2,500 square feet. So why would we penalize and they only have to get a building permit. Why wouldn't we do something similar why are we treating a non-residential use more strictly when it's 2,500 square feet?
Well, it's only us. I mean, it
Yeah.
would apply. Whenever I hear that, I say, come to my Starbucks at the train station in Concord. I mean, the thing can't be more than 1,700 square feet, and it's a freaking disaster. Especially when the train crossing is right behind it. So when there's a train and the track shuts the road down, it's just it's more laughable than it is when there's no train. Okay, so objectives to be met. These are the standards by which the decision is made. So I think I stole this from somewhere in 9.5 and 9.6. So when it's in these two districts that I put in the last section on special district regulations, you have to look back in making the decision to see whether it meets the objectives in 9.5 and 9.6. How's that? And then if it's not in one of these districts, you go back to the 6.1 to 6.5, and those are the criteria that you would apply. And then lastly, there's some things.
Before you scroll, can you go to 10.6.7?
Yeah.
Oh, I found the map scale.
Oh,
It's in the paragraph, and then it's in number 2.
What is it? 1 inch equals 40? Yeah. Ooh.
You've got one in the top paragraph and one in number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the locust plan in number 2.
Yep. And oftentimes we get that at 500 feet. I would put a range in or something like that. For both the locus and the scale of the map, each sheet.
Yeah, this is more customary. I see this more customarily at 40, not 20.
So 20 to 40 and 400 to 500?
Okay.
I had that on my list to fix that at some point, so I'm using this.
Cross it off.
But I got sick of, I think we had 4 decisions in a row that needed a waiver from it. And I went, well, they keep giving a waiver. It shouldn't be a requirement.
Yeah. Kind of like variances, right? You keep getting the same request for it. Something's wrong.
So now remember that you're going to a planning board public hearing, even if the use is available as of right. Because in order to make appeals directly to court, the land court has ruled they want that to have a public hearing before you get out of Dodge. And the appeal provision has been changed. Lapse, I think you had something different on lapse. It's 2 years. And the appeal is there.
10.6.16.
Yep. So that gets you into land court. Well, it actually gets you into a lot of courts, but most people just go to land court or superior court. And then site plan review for Dover uses applies only to B1, B2, B3 in the use table. And it's got 2 questions. Do you qualify? And what reasonable regulations can we stick you with? And it's got the same appeal period and the same public hearing requirement.
Alright.
And then accommodations. The AG's office will not let me even say that this decision is made at an open meeting. We've been going back and forth on this for like a year and a half. First, I said a public hearing, and they said, well, there's nothing in the federal law that says you have to do that. And I sent them 15 ordinances from around the country and said, what's the problem? They didn't like that. And then I said, all right, just an open meeting, but then it would be posted. And they properly responded by saying, well, what if this is a family matter? Like, what if you wanted an accommodation to a single family home because you have a severely disabled child? Why would you go spreading that news on cable television? And I don't disagree with that, but I didn't know what to do next. I mean, what am I supposed to say? We're not going to make this decision at a meeting? We're going to meet at the Dunkin' Donuts? So I just left it out.
Okay.
And if the board wanted to hold a public hearing, then they certainly could do that. And I wouldn't do it if it was a child's home renovations, but we're not talking about that here. We're talking about facilities for people that are recovering drug or alcohol abusers.
I would leave the ZBA stuff for them to review.
With definitions, I'm always open to anyone's questions and suggestions, but generally it's 20 pages. So, and you can see what it's done to the contents here. It's blown it up to 150 pages or so.
Can I suggest a change to common driveway?
The deaf?
Yep.
Shoot.
Where it says that in no case shall a common driveway be considered frontage as defined by this bylaw or in this bylaw. And
You want to take that out?
yeah, I want to replace it with something else.
Okay.
So where it starts with, but in no case, strike the end of that sentence.
Strike the but in no case?
The
All
whole
the way-
thing, all the way to the end. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'd like to replace it if it with the panel's approval, state instead, provided all lots being served by the common driveway have the required frontage prior to its construction.
Slow down.
I like it.
Is that
Would you just send me that when you send me the marijuana stuff?
Sure. Well, I just want to make sure everybody is okay with it before I do.
Say it again so I hear it again.
Yep. Provided all lots being served by the common driveway have the required frontage prior to its construction.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So building a common driveway doesn't take 20 feet off your frontage.
Which, yeah, we've thought that a couple of times now.
Okay. Let me just add a note to myself and get your calendars out.
And I do want to bring something up too on the digital electronic billboard, not here, but in the use table. I know we're not covering the use table and certainly don't want to open that, but I was looking back over it and I realized you had a question mark because there is an omission for digital billboard in the use under the industrial use table. For Village Center Core, it's blank. And the reason was, and this is my fault, that when we were working on it a few years ago, I didn't realize that when we put the chart together, we did not include digital electronic billboard. So it is blank, but I think that it's fair to say that we would not be putting a digital, we don't want billboards on in our village center. So if the board is okay, we should recognize it as a new change, but it should be no.
Let me grab the use table. Hang on.
I would just put it as SP like the rest of the whole, every.
Or was it
digital
SP? Was it SP?
It should be I think most of the bylaw is SP.
You may be
I
right.
just put it as SP.
Make it consistent with,
The
I
billboard
think
is not allowed except for in the industrial zone.
yeah,
Are we talking about difference between big billboard and digital sign?
this is
Yeah.
big billboard. This is
Okay,
big
then-
billboard.
Then no.
No,
Then no. Yeah.
The other one is electronic messaging or something like that, like messaging
Yeah.
board.
yeah,
Perfect. Then no.
Let me, hang on. Yeah, I see it's on the last page under L, so what do you want me to do?
no,
In the which district?
Village Center Core. You'll see you have
I
a,
see my question mark.
yeah,
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Right. So let's talk a minute about how, let's form a circle and pat ourselves on the back and talk about the fact that we have 9 months left. But this has rarely happened to me. And usually I'm rushing. When is the warrant language going to be required at clerk's office, planning board for public hearing?
We don't know yet because
Call it February,
after
March.
fall.
probably be by February.
Okay, so that means we would have to have warrant ready language February 1st, we'll say.
Yeah,
Okay, which means that we're August, September, October, November, December, January, we're 6 months out. So we're gonna do a work, I'll put a third draft together, both clean and coded. When we do the stakeholders meeting, I want to use the clean one. When somebody says, what did you change? Well, I have a copy of the coded one to throw at that person. But I used the coded one in Stoughton when I first started coding, and it just made the meeting a mess. So I've never done it since, and it's gone much better. And
I
I just,
apologize for my hometown.
well, no, I enjoyed working there. It was wonderful. Did you know Maureen O'Toole? She was planner there forever.
No.
Yeah, she's moved,
I know Noreen. Yeah, she's nice.
Yes.
She's good.
she's moved on.
She's got her own firm now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
no, I would. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, if we're gonna do a revised version, September stakeholders, October,
Yep.
November. Nobody works
Yeah.
in December. Reset in January, and we're good for February.
I would, yeah, and I think as far as the outreach, we've got so much going on before our October 21st. You know,
I think you're gonna go early November.
yeah, I would not want to do this until after our fall town meeting.
So it's early November before everybody eats turkey and stops working.
All right, well, what's today? Thursday? You like Thursday? Can we do the third draft on the 19th or the 26th of September?
Either work for me.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
I got a meeting the night before on the 18th in Holden, so give me a week to recover and let's do the 26th.
Sounds
There are
good.
no objections. Let's do it.
6 o'clock.
And then let's look ahead to October. I'm traveling at the end of the month. What do you like?
I am gone for a large portion of October.
What would the October session be to reset after draft 3?
It
Or to have
would
stakeholders?
It would be stakeholders with draft three.
Oh, then let's go for November.
Okay,
That'll get us after town meeting and communities.
okay. I'm gone until November. I come back Sunday the 10th. So want to do it the next couple of days?
We have a meeting on the
Sure.
12th.
Yeah.
No.
14th?
Yeah, we have meetings on, that's the month we have the 12th and the 19th, so either way, we're meeting twice in a week. So the 14th?
Yep.
And this would be the outreach meeting?
Yeah, you pick the invitees and set it up for a reasonable time, because more people probably can't make 6 than, if you set it up for 6:45 or 7 o'clock, it has a bigger attendance.
I do want to point out that as of right now, I don't know what their schedule is, but Thursday's probably not great because Board of Selectmen meet that night. And right now I have that on the calendar for that night. Unless they get off schedule again.
Well, Monday's Veterans Day, so that's kind of out.
I mean, they're gonna be on the stakeholders, right?
Yeah, well,
I would think so.
yeah,
I would just ask them how they want. We're looking at we're looking at one of these 2 weeks in November.
but Thanksgiving is really late this year. It's the 20th, so you got the whole
Yeah.
next work week to work with.
Yeah. Just,
I wouldn't do it late in the week. I would do it the 19th or the 20th.
yeah. So,
You've already got a meeting posted for the 19th or to be posted?
Yeah, it's scheduled.
Yeah.
Whether we have something, we don't know.
Yeah.
so,
Well,
we're looking-
I obviously have nothing in my calendar for any of this time, so pick a day, and I would schedule it for 6:45 at the earliest, so that you get more people to come after work.
Okay, so we'll have to work on that, but we think Thursday would be the day that works for us, not a Wednesday.
Anything's fine by me.
Doesn't
if we
matter
think
to
the
me.
select board has Thursday, is Wednesday, was quicker.
I'm open to any day. No.
Are we talking about the 13th or the 20th?
Right, correct.
Either one works for me.
Then I vote the 13th. Get it over with.
Then 13? All right, it's 6:45.
11.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, never mind.
11,
I'm on it.
13.
Right, I'm on it.
Okay, so I've got you in for the 13th.
Just don't forget about us in 2 months in between things.
Well, like I said, I've got 4 town meetings in my career left to go to. You, Norton, Wakefield, and Concord. So I'm really winding down. I'm having fun too. So the Sully Sullenberger retirement plan is really working.
Okay.
Just don't hit a bird when you're flying out.
Just don't come down too hard on the river. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll start to promote, we'll figure out,
Yep.
I think I have some ideas.
I'll send you the 2-pager at some point so that you can,
Okay,
put it up on the website.
great.
If I've seen all kinds of strategies. If you've got a reporter that you think would be able to befriend us and do us a favor, you could have him or her call me and I can walk them through what we're doing. And it's a whole lot better than the usual panic I see in Wicked Local.
Okie doke.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So are we looking to adjourn? Or are we still have more we want to look at?
No, I think I'm good. I got a daughter home from she's interning here with a friend of mine from Hartford, Yukon. So I got to take her out to dinner.
Okay.
All right, everybody enjoy.
So we get a motion?
Motion.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Happy Labor Day.